Picture this. You walk into a dealership. You spend $58,000 on a new car. You sign the papers, you shake the hand, you drive it off the lot. The heated seats work on the way home, but when you go out to your car the next morning, those same seats are cold. Not because they broke, not because of a recall, because the manufacturer decided overnight that you only paid for the hardware, not the right to turn it on. And if you want that privilege back, you will need to pay them $18 a month. Forever. This is not a hypothetical. This happened. BMW did this to customers in 2022 across multiple markets. And it was not a glitch, it was not a mistake, it was a business model, a blueprint. And every major automaker in the world is now copying it. In this investigation, we are going to expose the strategy the auto industry calls software-defined vehicles, and what the rest of us should call a shakedown. We are going to show you exactly which features are being locked behind paywalls in cars you legally own, which companies are the worst offenders, and who is quietly building the infrastructure to take this further than you can currently imagine. We are also going to show you what to buy instead, because the window to opt out of this system is still open, but it is closing fast. To understand what is happening, you have to understand how cars used to be engineered versus how they are engineered today. In the old model, you paid for a car and you received a machine. Every component inside that machine was yours. The engine, the transmission, the heated coils sewn into the seat fabric. If the hardware existed in the vehicle, you owned it. Full stop. There was no asterisk. There was no terms of service. There was no app. Modern vehicles do not work that way. Automakers have spent the last decade quietly migrating the architecture of your vehicle from hardware-based to software-based. Instead of building different physical versions of a car with different features, they now build one car. One single physical platform. They install all the hardware into every unit that rolls off the line, including the components for the features you did not pay for. Then they use a line of software code to lock those features off. You are sitting on top of everything you need. You just are not allowed to use it, not without a subscription. This is what the industry calls a software-defined vehicle. What it actually is a car with a toll booth installed in the dashboard. Let us start with BMW, because they were brazen enough to try it first and public enough that the world noticed. In 2022, BMW began offering heated rear seats, a feature that was already physically installed in the vehicle as a monthly subscription. The hardware was there, the wiring was there, the heating elements sewn into the fabric of the seat were there. You paid for them as part of the vehicle purchase price. But BMW had inserted a software lock between you and the coil that heats your backside. The price to unlock what you already owned was $18 a month, or $415 to unlock it permanently. When the backlash came, BMW walked it back in some markets. But they did not abandon the model. They abandoned the optics. The subscription infrastructure remained in place. Today, BMW still gates navigation services, remote software upgrades, and advanced driver assistance features behind recurring monthly fees. They retreated from the most visible symbol of the strategy, the heated seat, and continued executing the strategy everywhere else. That is not a company that listened to its customers. That is a company that learned how to be less obvious about what it was doing. Mercedes-Benz went further, and they did it with the one thing no car buyer ever expects to be locked: horsepower. In 2022, Mercedes introduced an optional upgrade for the EQE and EQS electric sedans. For $1,200 a year, you could subscribe to unlock an additional 80 horsepower. The motor producing that horsepower was already physically installed in the car. The battery capacity to power it was already there. Mercedes had simply capped the output in software and was offering to remove that cap as a recurring annual fee. If you stopped paying, the horsepower went away. The machine in your driveway became physically slower because you missed a payment to the company that sold it to you. There is a word for when someone takes something from you and charges you to get it back. It is not a subscription model. Think about what it means to sit in a vehicle you own, with a motor inside it producing power that is being deliberately withheld from you by the company that built it because you have not paid them this month. This is not a feature, it is a hostage. Toyota is not a villain in the same way as the European luxury brands, but they are not innocent either. And because Toyota has the largest global market share of any automaker on the planet, their decisions matter more than almost anyone else's. Toyota made Remote Start a subscription service. This is the feature where you press a button on your phone and your car starts before you walk out to it on a cold morning. On older Toyota vehicles, this feature was hardwired. It worked with a key fob and it was yours. When Toyota rolled out the updated Connected Services app, they restructured the system so that Remote Start required an active subscription to their Connected Services platform. Depending on the package, this runs anywhere from $8 a month to $15 a month. The hardware in your vehicle did not change. Your key fob still works. But the app-based version, the version that works when you are already inside your warm house, now costs money every single month indefinitely. Toyota eventually reversed this specific fee for Remote Start in the United States after a public reaction similar to BMW's. But the infrastructure that allows them to do it is still there. They built the toll booth. They just have not turned it on for this feature yet. General Motors is doing something more sophisticated and arguably more dangerous than all of them. GM has embedded a data collection and monetization framework directly into the architecture of their vehicles through a platform called OnStar. What started as an emergency roadside assistance service has evolved into something far more comprehensive. GM vehicles are constantly transmitting driving data back to the company. Speed, braking habits, route history, location data. This data is then packaged and sold to third parties, including, according to investigative reports published in 2024, insurance companies who use it to quietly raise premiums on drivers they have identified as high risk. You did not consent to this in any legible way. It was buried in a terms of service document that no human being reads. You bought a truck. You did not realize you were also agreeing to let the company that sold it to you surveil your driving behavior and sell that information to the people who insure you. And GM's Super Cruise, their hands-free highway driving system, works on a subscription model. The hardware is installed. The cameras and radar arrays and high-definition map sensors are physically present in your vehicle. But the system requires an active subscription to function. Let the subscription lapse and the system deactivates. The hardware sits there, inert, waiting for your credit card number. This is not an accident. This is a second revenue stream engineered directly into the vehicle purchase. You pay once to own the car. You pay forever to use the car. Now let us talk about Tesla, because Tesla did not invent software-defined vehicles, but they normalized every behavior that the traditional automakers are now adopting. Tesla's full self-driving package currently costs $8,000 as a one-time purchase or $99 a month as a subscription. The hardware required to run full self-driving, the cameras, the radar, the onboard computer chip, was installed in Tesla vehicles for years before the software was capable of using it. Tesla sold cars to customers with the explicit promise that they had purchased full self-driving capability and that the features would be unlocked via software update over time. For many of those customers, years passed. Some features arrived, others did not. The cars they bought were never able to do everything they were sold on the basis of. But more important than the specific legal questions around Tesla's promises is the cultural precedent they set. Tesla proved to the entire global automotive industry that customers would accept a model where the physical vehicle and the software that operates it are sold separately. That you would pay for hardware and then pay again, monthly or annually, for the right to activate it. Once Tesla proved consumers would accept this, every boardroom in Stuttgart and Detroit and Tokyo took notice. The feature you paid for when you bought the car is now called a base level. Everything above it is a tier, and every tier has a price, and that price recurs every month until you stop paying, at which point the hardware you paid for goes back to sleep. Here is the number that defines this era. The consulting firm McKinsey has projected that by 2030, the auto industry expects to generate $400 billion annually from software and digital services layered on top of vehicle sales. Not from selling cars, from charging the people who already bought cars to use the things inside them. When an industry is looking at $400 billion in projected annual revenue from subscription fees on hardware you already purchased, the people designing your next vehicle are not thinking about how long it will last. They are thinking about how many lockable features they can install. They are thinking about how to make the app indispensable. They are thinking about how to migrate as much value as possible from the one-time purchase into the recurring payment. You are not a customer anymore. You are a subscriber. And there is a profound difference between those two things. A customer pays and receives. A subscriber pays and keeps paying, forever, or they lose access. So where does this leave the person who just wants to buy a machine and own it outright? There are still options, but you have to know what to look for. The clearest safe harbor right now is the used market for vehicles manufactured before 2018. The software-defined architecture required to gate features behind subscriptions was not widely deployed before that window. A 2016 Ford F-150 with a 5.0-liter engine does not have a software lock on its torque output. A 2015 Toyota 4Runner does not require a subscription to lock the hubs or run the rear differential. A 2014 Honda Accord does not call home. These vehicles are mechanical devices first. They operate on the principle that you paid for the machine and the machine is yours. The Japanese domestic market imports, particularly Toyota Land Cruiser variants and Mitsubishi Delica models from the same era, are worth looking at specifically because the Japanese domestic market was not structured around the connected services infrastructure that North American and European markets were pushing. These vehicles were built to be tools, not platforms. If you are buying new and cannot avoid it, look at the brands that have been loudest in their resistance to this model. Subaru has been slower than most to implement subscription-gated hardware features. Their connected services are genuinely optional. They are not in the habit of physically installing hardware and then charging you to turn it on. Mazda has similarly kept their feature set clean by current industry standards. Neither brand makes the largest truck or the most powerful SUV, but both brands make cars that behave like cars instead of apps. The brands to be most cautious about are the ones most aggressively discussing the software-defined vehicle as a growth strategy in their investor presentations. When a CEO stands in front of Wall Street analysts and describes their vehicle as a platform, they are not talking about a machine. They are talking about a device. Treat it accordingly. There is a deeper issue here that goes beyond the monthly fee for heated seats. It is a question of what ownership means. For the entirety of American automotive history, buying a car meant owning a car. The machine depreciated, it wore out, it needed maintenance, but it was yours. You could drive it, modify it, resell it, pass it down. The value was in the object. The relationship between you and the vehicle was defined by possession, not by a license agreement. What the auto industry is building right now is a model in which you never fully own the machine you paid for. You own the deprecating metal frame. But the functionality of that frame, the features, the performance, the data it generates, is owned by the manufacturer in perpetuity. They can change the terms. They can remove features. They can decide the subscription is no longer offered and brick capabilities you depended on. You have no recourse because you agreed to arbitration in the purchase contract and the feature was never really sold to you. It was licensed. The defining phrase of this era is not the one BMW used in their press release when they announced the heated seat subscription. Their phrase was innovative ownership experience. The phrase that actually describes it is this: you do not own the machine, you are renting access to it, and the rent is due every month, and the landlord is the same company that sold you the building. Before you sign the paperwork on anything new, ask the sales manager one specific question. Ask them to show you in writing which features in this vehicle require an active subscription to operate. Not which features are enhanced by a subscription, which features require one. If they cannot answer, or if they tell you it is all explained in the app, walk out. The answer you need is a simple list. If they will not give you that list, it is because the list is long and they do not want you to see it before you sign. Buy the machine that behaves like a machine. Buy the steel and the rubber and the mechanical linkage that does not need a server farm in California to tell your seat to get warm. The best truck you will ever own is the one that runs when the Wi-Fi is down.